Okay, everyone, let's grab our seats. It is officially 8:30 p.m. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome home. A couple quick announcements. December 9th, right here, 9 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. We're going to have an all-day 12-step workshop. We're flying Peter M. up from Florida, Marion W. from Florida, Jimmy A. is coming in from New Jersey. We've got a whole list of people. It's absolutely free with free lunch. Your support over the years and the contributions and donations have made this possible. This group is about service. That's really our opportunity to be of service here. That's the whole purpose of our group. And we always like to try to pass that along. We do have some other commitments. Sunday night, treatment center in Quakertown, 7 p.m. if you're interested. There's no requirements whatsoever. If you've ever been in a treatment center, you know how much they look forward to people in AA and people on the outside coming in there and sharing a message of hope and recovery. So there's just showing up as a body is very powerful, and they're very appreciative, and that's what this whole thing's about carrying this message to the sick and suffering. What else do we got? There's a whole list of things I always forget. Oh yeah, our hoodies. Cost on the hoodies are $22. Of course, we lose $2 and sell them to you for a generous amount of $20. Or if you can't afford that, we'll dollar down and a dollar when we catch you. Anyway, we got the world's greatest chairperson. Let's give a warm welcome to Miss Kara all the way.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kara, and I am a grateful and recovering alcoholic. Hello, y'all. Welcome home. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m. and speaker at 8:30 p.m. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God, reliance, and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name only?
David from Richmond, Virginia.
Woohoo! Welcome.
Evan alcoholic.
Welcome.
Jeremy alcoholic.
Welcome, Jeremy.
Jimmy alcoholic.
Welcome, Jimmy.
Jack alcoholic.
Welcome. Well, welcome all. We're so glad y'all are here. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Our sister group is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. just up the street at Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street, Doylestown. Coffee is on at 6:15. Please join us. We have a meeting list and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purpose of big books and CDs to help those who cannot afford them can put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Books and CD Donations. All CDs are available free of charge. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. You can find our speakers there. Join our Facebook page to keep informed and share upcoming events and meetings. Now I would like to ask Olivia to come up. She's going to read our Just for Today Prayer Recovery. Let's give Olivia a warm welcome. Woo-hoo!
Olivia alcoholic. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And next I'm going to call up Nick to read the preamble.
Father Nick, alcoholic. The AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. They may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership, and we are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And now with that, we have Lisa to come up and read the 12 Steps of Recovery.
All right, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Sister Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. I dropped my habit a long time ago. Okay. Where is? Oh, so simple. The AA 12 Steps of Recovery. Sorry. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And now Kara will come back up.
The 7th tradition states, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses. The group provides many services. Your donations cover food, rent, big book CDs, events and workshops, etc. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, I'd like to introduce the speaker as a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Let's give a warm welcome to Pam H. She came all the way from Westchester County. Woo-hoo!
Hi everybody, my name is Pam and I am an alcoholic. Hi Pam. Microphones do not intimidate me, just so you know. Speaking for an hour doesn't intimidate me. Matter of fact, my nickname when I was a little kid was Chatterbox. So, Ron, thank you for inviting me tonight to be out here. This is an honor and a privilege. Kara, thanks for that warm introduction. Let me qualify myself. As I said, my name is Pam H. My sobriety date is September 18th, 1993. Home group is Hershey's Mill. Have any of you heard of it? Anybody heard of it? Anybody here of Chester County? All right. Been my home group for 29 and a half years. I found it when I was 6 months sober and haven't left for a lot of reasons. So I am going to, I just want to ask, if you guys don't mind doing this, I always like, like old school kind of stuff. How many people are in their first 5 years of sobriety? Awesome. How many people are in their first year of sobriety? Awesome, great. Well, what I'm about to tell you, everything I learned was in that first year. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So let me share my experience, strength, and hope. I come from a family that I grew up in Syracuse, New York. My dad was Air Force. He was an officer in the Air Force. I mean, if you looked at my parents, they were beautiful, they were smart. My dad in a uniform was one of the most handsome men you ever saw. But he was an alcoholic, and my mother suffered from grave emotional and mental disorders. And so the house was very chaotic, to say the least. And as a little kid, I was 3 out of 4. There were 4 of us growing up. And of the house was crazy because my dad actually retired when I was 5 years old. He retired at age 37. So now he was home all the time. It was actually great when he wasn't home. It was actually great when he was overseas. My mom was amazing. I mean, I can remember once she rented it was like probably a 1960 red convertible. I can just remember it was with a white convertible top, and she threw all 3 of us kids, the 4th one wasn't born yet, and we just went out because she rented it for the night and took all of us kids, you know, driving around in a convertible, which I thought was so cool. But then when he would come home, things would get kind of dark. It would just get kind of crazy. And the crazy part about it would be, my dad wasn't a violent man. He wasn't a bad man at all. He was absent. If you wanted to hang out with my father, you learned to hang out in the bar. I was a barroom athlete by the time I was 8 years old. I could play any machine in the bar, and was really good at it, and carried that tradition on for many years. But you know, the crazy stuff would happen. Like, my mother was Irish, my father was German, my father was 6'1", my mother was 5'2". And then 3 o'clock in the morning, you could hear my mother screaming at my father and throwing milk bottles at him, because we used to have milk boxes on the front porch with the glass bottles. And she'd be throwing the bottles at him, "You stay out of this house, blah, blah." And then the next day, get up and everything was normal, right? Everything was normal. Or there'd be a party thrown over the weekend. You know, my parents would invite their friends over, and all of a sudden we had all these aunts and uncles the next morning laying around the house, sleeping it off. You know, oh, there's Uncle Ray, there's Uncle Johnny, there's so-and-so. And I was like, wow, we have a big family. I didn't realize our family was that big. But, you know, it was just filled with people that were drunk and passed out around the house. So the abnormal was normal in my family. By the time I was 13, I started to drink. I had my first drink. I can remember it vividly. It was Old Granddad. You know, really high test. We may have had some other things before then, because as we were babysitting, at this point now we lived in an apartment complex, and we were getting a lot of babysitting jobs, my friends and I, and but this one friend of mine was just an expert at stealing the booze out of everybody's house. And of course would mix it in a jar, and we would drink it like there was no taste involved at all. It was terrible, but we drink it. But it was the Old Granddad I remembered. So it was 13, I can remember my first drink. And you know, it was fun. I had a good time. And by the time I was 14, we were drinking fairly regularly, and now other substances were coming into play, which I will not talk about here because this is an AA meeting. But I used to call myself a recreational drug user, like it was a sport. You know, some people were on, you know, track. I was doing other things, right? I was on track though too, by the way, because I was a really smart kid, and I was on honor roll, and I was the kid that wasn't a problem, so they left me alone, right? Because my brother, my older brother, now he had issues, you know. Today they probably would have medicated him, but you know, back then he was pretty wild. As a matter of fact, my mother separated the 2 of us when I was 5 years old because she was convinced he was going to kill me with just some of his antics. So it was that kind of a crazy house. I mean, one time he set the house on fire when we were sleeping, you know. He used to take the car and roll it out in the yard, you know, with me in the back seat, you know, stuff like that, crazy stuff. Anyways, and my mom kept trying to keep it all together, but my mom really suffered from depression and other issues. So by the time I'm 14 and I'm starting to drink, it's like all of a sudden the sense of ease came over me. You know, like when I drank, it was like, whew, this is kind of nice, you know, this is kind of fun. We can go out and have a good time. And I can't remember any time from 14 until I got sober at 37. I can't remember any time that I just had one drink. Can't remember it. All I remember is getting drunk, because that's what I did. I got drunk. Growing up in Syracuse, New York, back then, you could drink at 18. By the time I was 15, I had already gotten to be the height I am today. When I was 14, I was 5'3". When I was 15, I was almost 5'9". So now I'm tall and lanky and hanging outside the bars and getting in. So I'm in bars now at age 15, and of course I meet the love of my life who's 21, which that was enough of a scandal doing that. But you know, there we were on the weekends. It was the summer, and there we were, thank God. He went off and married his high school sweetheart and left me alone, which was great. I went back to school brokenhearted and finished, you know, throwing myself into school, honor roll, everything else going forward, and, you know, graduated from high school. But in those 2 years, from 15 to 17, I graduated at 17. You know, alcohol was always involved in something. I was a senior in high school, and we had this very unique program where I grew up in Syracuse. It was a very special senior year. You didn't have to do traditional high school. You could do something that was called humanities. So it was a whole lot of freedom. And that meant we could be outside, which sometimes we got drunk, and then we'd come back to school. When we had the senior variety show, I was the co-chair of the show, and I took the money from the show, and actually, I didn't do this, I'm blaming it on my friend who's now sober too. We took half the money raised, and I gave her the money because she was already 18. I said, go buy the booze for the party, and we threw a 2-day party. And so here I am, I'm not even legal yet in New York State, and I'm already, the principal and everybody else wants to sit me down and talk to me about spending school funds on alcoholic beverages. And now at the same time, I'm an honor student. I'm in National Honor Society. You know, I'm getting ready to go off to college. So this whole Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing is already happening, right? But I can handle it at this point. I can remember my dad looking at me one time. It was my brother. My brother was going into the Army, and he's 3 years older than me. And it was his going away party at the American Legion. And my father got him a keg of beer for his friends, and my father turned around, looked at me, and he goes, and he just pointed his finger at me, and he goes, and you stay away from the beer. Right, Dad? He wasn't out the door. I had my head under the keg, you know, because it was funny. I thought it was funny, right? But I didn't understand what alcoholism was at that point, because, you know, I saw my father. My father at this stage already had been hospitalized for end-stage alcoholism, and how that manifested was he didn't drink one day and he went into a grand mal seizure. So I thought if you were an alcoholic, and it was all about that, right? That if you didn't drink, you had seizures and this and that. Well, that wasn't happening to me because I was just taking off. My drinking was at the beginning of it. You know, if we know this is a progressive disease, it starts off in different early, and then at the end stage, you literally have to drink or you can have seizures, and that was my father. And he lived another at least 15 years after that before he died of this disease. But anyways, so I'm looking at him and I'm like, well, I'm not like him, you know? Cool. And I'm smarter than the two of them, my mother and father, because I'm a teenager now, so those two make no sense to me whatsoever. And I will say it, I had pot. I knew I was smarter than those two, right? So I was using, you know, I was doing whatever I wanted to do. Anyways, I always like to say, I got sober at 37, and I had to be brought to my knees. I had to be brought to my knees by this disease, because I was that alcoholic that was filled with self-deception and experimentation because I wanted to not be you. I was going to do everything in my power to prove I wasn't an alcoholic, because I thought I knew what an alcoholic was. And that chapter 3 in the big book, when they write that whole thing about self-deception and experimentation, when I read that whole chapter, I went, oh my God, they wrote my life story. It's right here. The whole chapter is my life story. But here I am, 17, and now I'm off to college. And I like to say, at 37, I got sober. I could have been here at 17. I see these kids come in at 17, and I'm like, whoa, I could have been right here with you. But you know what? It was a different time and place, and it just didn't roll that way back then in the 70s. I firmly believe both of my parents would be in the rooms today. I firmly believe my parents were smart, beautiful people, but it was a different time and place for them too. But I really truly believe that those two would have made it to the rooms. At least my mother, or she would have gone to Al-Anon, one or the other. But I could have been here at 17. I should have been here by 27. It took until I was 37 for me to get bloodied enough. So all through my drinking career for the next, from 17 on, my older sister, who I adored, was the only one of the four of us that did not have an alcohol problem or a drug problem. But she had grave emotional and mental disorders. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when she was in her 20s. And when she was 27 and I was 17, she's trying to take me to Alateen. And I'm like, that's okay, I got it. Don't worry about me. I'm going to college, and I'm going to write all the papers about these people in my psychology classes. And that's what I did. I have all my papers, undergrad, writing all my papers on the psychology of alcoholism, because I'm gonna figure my way out of this. I'm gonna research it. I'm gonna write about it. I'm gonna figure it out. So, what happens after that? First DUI at 23. They didn't call it a DUI in New York State back then, though. Actually, they gave you something lower than that, and they sent you to these drunk driving classes, and they were fun. And the social worker I met with it just told me I was bored and I needed a hobby. So I started doing photography, because that was going to help. And life was going on fine. And then I did my first geographical cure. I was in healthcare, so I moved from Syracuse down to Philadelphia. And the following year, I was 28. I moved down here at 27, 28. I was back home in Syracuse, and I got my second DUI. And this could have tanked my career. And why God was looking out for me, I don't know, but it didn't. I didn't lose my license, anything, but what I did do was quit drinking. It was 1984, and I quit drinking. I was done. I was not going to drink, no more. So now I'm white knuckling it. And there is nothing worse than a dry drunk, because I'm holding out with as tight as I can to anything, just not to drink. Because in my family, to not drink was you're the odd guy out. When I quit drinking, it was like, there she goes again, making a big deal out of it, right? And I can still remember my mother trying to get me to have a drink. I said, Mom, I can't drink. She's like, why can't you drink? I said, I can't drink. I think I have a problem. She goes, well, I don't. I'm like, I'm not talking about you, It's just how it rolled, right? That's what it's like growing up in an alcoholic family. Anyways, I quit drinking, and I quit drinking from 1984 until 1988, just like it talks about in the big book. Stopped. No more. Smoked pot every day for 3 years. And that's why it has to be part of my story, because I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't understand I was just substituting something else to take me out of myself, that uncomfortableness. So now I'm not drinking, and on the outside I'm looking good, right? I've got a great career, just like my parents. Outside looks good, inside imposter syndrome, right? Broken, shattered. I used to carry a piece of paper around in my wallet that actually, when I would open it up at work, because I had to use a calculator at work, it said, you are a good person. I literally had to tell myself that, because every time I got drunk, something stupid would happen, or I'd end up somewhere stupid, and I hated myself for it. The self-loathing was so bad, but when I was in my professional mode, I was really professional, and I could really carry that off and pull that off. So now I'm in Switzerland. I'm on a business trip in Switzerland. I'm in the foothills of the Swiss Alps with my boss, who I couldn't say he's one of us, but he sure drank like us. And it was the last day of the trip. Of course, I'm going to therapy now, too. And of course, all I'm doing is whining about my parents. About, the horrible childhood I had and all this. I didn't understand the self-pity that I was filled with at that point, because I was traumatized. I was just basically traumatized growing up in that family. So now it's the last day, the last night, and we sit down, and he asked me if I want a glass of wine, and 6 bottles later, You know, just like it says in the big book. You know, they say you put down the drink and you pick it back up and your disease is following you right along. My drinking picked up right where it had left off. There was no stop, there was no nothing. And so what happened was I flew home, I got off the plane. I will never forget this. I'm flying home, it's almost Christmas, and It's a Wonderful Life is the movie playing, and it's broken, right? It's broken. It's the same reel that keeps playing over and over and over again. It's Jimmy Stewart running through the snow, you know, finding his way back to town. I mean, it cycled. I was like hungover. I'm like, this is nuts. I can't believe this. But anyways, I got home, and what was the first thing I did? I called my therapist up. I said, oh my God, I drank. She said, get in here. I came in, and she gave me her wise wisdom and said, well, you know, most people that have a problem with alcohol, less than 20% can never drink normally. Well, what the hell? I was a high achiever. No problem. I'm in the top 20, right? So guess what I did? This is the insanity. I went out and bought a bar. I went out and bought a bar. I didn't go to rehab. I backdoored my butt into AA. That bar was my rehab. My bottom hit hard because of that bar. But man, I was like a vision for me, right? There I had a bar in Northern Liberties. I bought my friend of mine and I was in the middle of the crack epidemic, you know, so I'm almost getting murdered, you know, in the corner that we bought because it's a transitional neighborhood. But, you know, why not? I should just buy a bar. Craziest thing I ever did. I'm lucky to be alive today because of that. But that's why I know if life was fair, I'd be dead. But my higher power definitely had a plan. So I bought the bar in '88. I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. The last 13 months of my drinking truly got insane because now I had already had the 2 DUIs, which I told you about. Now I was moving to number 3, except they didn't catch me. I wiped out the whole side of my car. The police came knocking on my door. I didn't answer it. I showed up. They knew, but they didn't arrest me for it, thank God, because I showed up 12 hours later. So I didn't get that, but now things were serious. And those next 13 months, I really did everything in my power to control this. I started keeping charts. Do you think normal people keep charts of their drinking? I mean, seriously, I had charts. I had a calendar, and it marked when I was drinking and when I wasn't. And all of a sudden, I'm like 4 or 5 months into this, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm thinking about drinking in it before I'm even drinking. I'm not even drinking and I'm thinking about drinking. This is really crazy. And I thought, that's just nuts, right? I said, this alcohol, maybe it's got me by the back of the neck, right? I picked up a book. I don't know where I found it or who told me to do it, and it wasn't it's not approved literature, but I picked up a book called Under the Influence. And it was the best book I could have read at that point because it showed me, because again, I was a clinician, so it showed me the clinical aspects of this disease. It explained the 4 stages of alcoholism. I saw me, I saw my father, I saw this, I went, oh my God, now I'm getting it, and I'm almost as bad as him. And then about 30 days before I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I had just come back from Sonoma, wine tasting. Because I was a wine drinker by now, right? Didn't have the bar anymore, closed the bar. Still had the bar, but closed the bar. Would not leave the house because I wasn't drinking. My car, as you can now know, my car liked inanimate objects, you know, so I wasn't safe driving. So I shipped home a case of this wine, and we were actually joking on the tour. And we said, I said, you know what, I'm going to go into a blackout and hide it. Because then it'll take me about 18 months for it to age well, and then I'll be able to drink it. I mean, right, you guys get it, right? You get it. Anyways, I sat down on a Sunday night to drink, and remember, it's 1993, so we were still in state stores, and liquor stores weren't open on Mondays and all this. And all I did was sit down to have a bottle of wine. And the next morning I woke up, and anything that had alcohol in it was empty on my counter. All the beer, all the schnapps, all the wine, everything, and I was so hungover. And I believe this was my first spiritual awakening. Because here I was standing there. I was 37 years old. I was the same age as my father was when he retired from the military. And I remember something he had done, and that his alcoholism was in full gear then. And I said to myself, oh my God, I might be as bad as him. I might be worse. And he died from this, and it was not pretty. So that was like the first moment. And then the next one was, and I don't know why this happens, again, this is just, I think, God and the universe, you know, whatever your higher power is. I started to think about every time I got in trouble. When I drank, I didn't always get in trouble, but every time I got in trouble, I was always drunk. Okay. The next moment was, maybe it's the alcohol. And then I thought, maybe it's the alcohol, okay. Maybe not drinking might actually be kind of like the next step, the next journey, right? The next catapulted into the fourth dimension, whatever you want to call it. But it might be the next real high, because I was so tired of feeling the way I was tired. And I don't know what happened, how it happened, but 30 days later, a friend of mine called me on the phone on September 17th. She said, what are you doing? I went, yeah. She goes, you're drunk. I said, yes, I am. And she said, good, I'm coming over. And she sat me down and she said, I love you. I think you're one of the most amazing people I know. I wish you could get this monkey off your back. I said, no problem, I'll quit tomorrow. And September 18th was my last drink. I did not plan on going to AA. I did not go to AA the first day. I didn't go the second day. The third, fourth day, I think it was, maybe fifth. I had that, when you quit drinking, you can make it a day, you make it two, and then all of a sudden you start getting itchy and scratchy, you get uncomfortable in your own skin. I was starting to feel that, and I'm like, I have to do something. And I refused to go to a rehab. Oh, and the other thing I had been doing for the last 13 months was going to something called Father Vince's ACOA workshops. I don't know if anybody knows Father Vince. So Father Vince was this great priest who, down in Fort Washington and down in Manayunk, used to run this 12-step workshop. It was just like this. It wasn't a share, like a meeting. It was you listen to him, and he was an addict that got sober. And he talked, and he went through all 12 steps of the program. That's why I love the 12 steps of this program, the spiritual steps. And he actually said, as I was sitting through this classroom instruction that I needed, he said, be careful if you haven't dealt with your own problems, you might open up Pandora's box. And I can remember I was very drunk one night that summer before I got sober. I said, oh my God, I think I opened up Pandora's box, because I was becoming aware. So anyways, that fifth day I walked into an AA meeting. I called a clubhouse by my house. It was the Phoenixville Clubhouse. And I walked into that meeting, and first the kid on the phone was a kid. I picked up the phone, he's like, hey, and I'm like, hey. And he goes, yeah, we got a meeting at 5:30, come on down. I'm like, well, he didn't sound like my dad, so that's kind of different. And the Phoenixville Clubhouse, if you probably have never been there, but it's this old building and these rickety stairs. You go up to this room and you can hear all this you're laughing. You've been there? Have you been there? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And you get up to smelly old couches and everybody's smoking, and I'm like, I'm in the jump seat. I'm right by the door. I'm gonna head out, because you people, I don't know yet. I don't know who you are, but I got there early enough to kind of look around the room and start to see these signs. And one of them was the responsibility pledge, and that I could totally relate to. That I could aspire to that, because I was an incredibly responsible kid. When it came to my family, my work, everything, I could be very responsible. The only person I couldn't be responsible to was me, because of my alcoholism. So I looked up at that and I went, oh, that's kind of cool. And somebody started to read, they asked if anybody was new. Hand went up. I'm a joiner. Hi, I'm Pam. And didn't say alcoholic. Oh no, just hi, I'm Pam. Nice to be here. And then somebody started to read how it works. And I swear, hand to God, right here, hand to my mother, Irish mother. She'll haunt me if I ever lie. They said how, they didn't say why. And I heard how. And my brain immediately said, oh, they have a plan. It wasn't why it works. It wasn't a theory. It was a how. That's all I heard. And then I got my hand up at the end of that meeting and said, oh no, the women attacked me at the end of the meeting. That's what happened at the end of the meeting. They jumped me. And they said, hey, come on back. We got another meeting tomorrow night. Women's meeting, come to the basement, blah, blah, blah. And it was the second meeting I put my hand up. And I got sober at the Phoenixville Clubhouse. I spent my first 6 months there. It was this crazy winter. It was 1993. I used to always show up in my ski pants and a sweater. They used to call me Susie Chapstick, you know, because that's how I would come. You know, I had the Jeep so I could pick everybody up. And, you know, I'm 60 days sober, and they're taking me to a women's halfway house to participate in 12-step commitment. Not to speak, but to listen. And I felt so honored that they asked me to go along with them. By that Christmas, because it's September 18th, so by December 18th, I've now made it to 90 days. And if any of you are in your first 90 days, give it 90 days. Get all the way through the 90 days. I almost drank at 72. And all I heard myself say was, and then you'll have to start all over. So I hung in there because somebody in the room said to me, give us 90 days, and if you're not fully satisfied, we'll return all your misery. I said, okay, I can do that. That's why I love AA. It was all this stuff that people would throw at me. But, you know, you guys were nice, but I thought you were all a little crazy. Like, I thought you were all really crazy until I realized I was the crazy one. You know, you start showing up in the grocery store. You start showing up, you know, around my neighborhood, and I'm like, that's whatever. But when I almost picked up and I called my first sponsor up on the phone, and this is before cell phones, by the way, so this was really fun. We didn't have cell phones back then. And I'm standing in an airport in Pittsburgh crying to my sponsor going, oh my God, I almost drank last night, blah, blah, blah. And she very lovingly said, you haven't been to a meeting in a week, you've been dangerously close to alcohol with no parental guidance, don't talk to me again until you've been to 2 meetings. Click. Okay. So I got to the first meeting I walked into, oddly enough, was step 2. And when I saw the part, restore us to sanity, I went, oh, I'm insane. I'm the one that's insane, not you guys. Because you see, I was terminally unique. I was not going to be like you. When I owned that bar, I would pull that bar stool up next to somebody who was just a little worse than me. So I could say, I might be an alcoholic, but I'm not that bad. Just look, I might be an alcoholic, but I don't look like my father, right? Stuff like this. Arrogant, because of fear. It's all fear, because this is what this disease does, right? So I get to that meeting, I get to 2, and then I call my sponsor, and I told her early on, I said, you know, I got step 1 down. I said, it's step 3 I struggle with, it's this God thing, because I came in, I always joke, I like to say I came in as an agnostic. I look at the priest and he still makes me nervous. I came in as an agnostic. I would never say atheist because I was too afraid God would smite me. What I've come to appreciate is I didn't trust God anymore. Because I didn't even trust me. I couldn't trust anybody. And so the third step for me was learning trust. It was learning to do what was told to do when I was struggling, and that is never underestimate the power of prayer. And get up and then do the next right thing, no matter what crazy was going on. And I would get so mad. I'd say, you AA people and all that prayer crap, you know, what are you talking about? You don't have my problems, blah, blah, blah. And my sponsor would go, Never underestimate the power of prayer. Go say the 3rd step prayer. I love the 3rd step prayer. I say it every morning. I love the 7th step prayer. It's part of my routine. I love the serenity prayer. Those are my 3 prayers that I love. I love the 3rd step prayer because relieve me of the bondage of self so I may better do your will. That's like taking a spiritual shower in the morning. That's like the first thing I do is release myself from my bondage and align myself. Because the thing about us alcoholics, it's a big lie that we're weak-willed. We are the most strong-willed people you will ever meet. We will drive to work, you know, one eye. We'll get there. We can still be drunk, but damn it, we'll get there, right? We're going to show up because we're not weak-willed. We're powerless over one thing. Just one. We're powerless over alcohol. Nothing else, right? And it doesn't say powerless over alcohol and our lives are unmanageable. It's a hyphen. Our lives are unmanageable. Wake up, that's life. Life can be very unmanageable at times. It can be very difficult. And all AA promises me is how to live life on life's terms. So I get a new sponsor because the first sponsor she couldn't take me past step 3. The sponsor I got is the sponsor I still have today. I've had her for 29 years. I like to say she knows when I pick up the phone and she hears my voice, she can tell what's going on. That's why when I sponsor, we do not text. Oh no. You call. If you're a newcomer, you call me every day. And you call me in the morning. And we start the day in sobriety. And we start doing the mechanics just like I was taught. Because I'm not making anything up here. None of my stuff's original. It was given to me. And in that first year, that sponsor I have today said, are you willing to do all 12 steps in the order they're written? And I said, yes. She goes, and are you willing to give it away and pass it on once we get through the 12th step? I said, yeah. She goes, are you in a relationship? I said, no, I'm not. She said, great. You're not going to be in one until you get through at least step 9 and get a year under your belt. I was like, okay. Yeah, I redefined that a little bit. And caused me pain. Because the only step I do perfectly is step 1. All the rest is practice, and I have to get better and better at it. So we went through all 12 steps in the order they're written, and I was about 9 months sober maybe, and I'm cruising, man. I'm hanging out with my girlfriends. I'm like, this is great. Remember I kept charts on my drinking, right? No big deal. I'll have a year and 2 months. It's almost September 18th. When I get a year, I'm getting drunk. And then I'll start all over again. And they looked at me, my friends looked at me. They're in the rooms, they're sober. They're like 5 years sober now, and they're all that. And they're like, did you just hear yourself? I said, what? They said, you just planned a drunk 2 months in advance. They said, do you think normal people plan a drunk 2 months in advance? No, normal people don't even think about drinking. They don't even think about it. You know, do they want to drink? Don't they want to drink? They don't obsess. I obsess. And I went, oh, that's alcoholic thinking. I couldn't have found that in a book. I had to be taught that in the rooms. So I got through those steps, and I went through step 3, and then I got to step 4, and I wrote my inventory list, and I'm the alcoholic. Again, the arrogant alcoholic that came in the room and said, I don't have any resentments. I don't have any. Yeah. First one on the list was my father. Right? And we did it the old-fashioned way. We did it like the big book. I got raised in the big book. I used the big book. I love the big book. I love the writings in AA. That first year, I not only read the big book and the 12 and 12 and used them, I also read the history of AA because I had to know where this came from. You know, I had to know the genesis of it, the origin of it. You know, when I was starting to do step 2, it was like now. It was autumn. It was beautiful. And I used to go over to Valley Forge and sit around and read and study and read my 12 and 12. And I swear to God, I'm walking one day, I'm reading step 2, and all of a sudden I look up, I went, oh my God, the world, it's color. Because when I hit my bottom and came into the rooms, it was like that movie, Night of the Living Dead. Like everything was black and white, everything was gray, there was no color, it was all monochrome. And now all of a sudden the world is beautiful, and I can see the trees, and I can smell the leaves, and something was starting to change inside of me, because something was awakening. I always say the first gift I got in that first year was sleep. For 20 years, I thought I slept. I didn't realize I was just passing out every night. That's all I was doing. And finally, I'm waking up in the morning, I'm like, whoa, I feel great. And it's like, oh yeah, that's sleep, I'm sleeping. This is what real sleep feels like. So these are kind of the gifts in early sobriety. Those first things I learned in my first year, 2 phone calls a day, and one of them is, and my sponsor doesn't count. In other words, I have to talk to at least 2 alcoholics a day, and that does not count the conversations I have with my sponsor. I already talked about prayer. My sponsor always said to me, you got to answer 4 things. If you're going to be sober today, there's 4 things you have to remember. Do you have a home group? Are you in service? Do you have a sponsor? And what step are you on? And you know, that first year going through all 12 steps in the order they're written gave me that foundation they talk about in between step 5 and step 6 in the big book, where it talks about, have you laid the bricks? Is the mortar right? Don't you love the way they wrote the book? Sometimes I go, oh my God, this book is so corny. You know, now I love the book because it's so prescriptive. It's so well written. I love to tell a new sponsee to go, this is one of my first things I do with a newbie. Go get How It Works, open up chapter 5, because there's not an alcoholic on the planet that ever opened up an operator's manual at the first page, so you go right to chapter 5, because that's how we work. And now I want you to underline or highlight, I don't care what you do, every adverb. And some of them go, okay, well, great. And others will say, well, what's that? I said, every word that ends in ly. Just do it. Because when you read it, it tells us rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. That's how it works, right? And it tells us that some of us do suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Wow. You know, honesty, openness, and willingness, right? That's the beauty of this program. So a page and a half in the big book gives you everything you need. Read the rest, but it gives you everything you need to know what to do to stay sober. And it entails doing these at least once in the order they're written to lay down the foundation. Now, I do that with my sponsees. We work through steps all the time. But now the steps for me have become more like a little bit of a math problem. Because see, I like physics and I like science and I like math and I think recovery is very binary. I'm either walking towards a drink or I'm walking away from one. It's that simple, right? You know, they don't talk a lot, you know, the old timers talked a lot about slipping. They didn't talk a lot about relapse, they talked a lot about slipping in AA. Sobriety losing its priority. If I don't put my sobriety number 1 at the top every day, if I don't wake up every day with a commitment to being sober today, you know, then all of a sudden it becomes an obligation. It's like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. It's like going to the gym. Yeah, I'll get to it. If I want to be healthy and well, I've got to commit every day to what am I doing today for my recovery. So this math problem thing I'm talking about kind of works this way for me now. So, you know, you get through 5, you look at your character defects, because luckily your 4th step and 5th step is showing you the 4th column, and you're like, oh, that's how I behave in the world. I've been at a war for 20 years. I've been fighting everybody, even though it's an imaginary war. Everything's really okay, but in my head it's been going on, and I'm going to win, right? So I'm angry, I'm full of fear, and so my anger comes out of sarcasm and rage and this and that, and I've got, oh, I'm self-righteous, I'm judgmental, I'm all these things, right? So now I see that and I get through, and then I have to keep working and more practice. I got to do the 8th step, make my list. My sponsor and I had a great time with that list, because she said to me at the end of my 5th step, don't burn it. She said, there's no drama here. She said, that list is the beginning of your 8th step. I was like, well, good. I like a little shortcut. Let's start there. Got through the 8th step list, started making the 9th step, the amends, got to living in 10, 11, and 12. Now give it away. Start sponsoring other people, do all these things. But today, I can hear myself when a character defect flares up. Oh, I can be judgy. Thank God people can't hear our thought bubbles. You know what I mean? Right? And I've also learned that most of the time, when I'm judging, I'm wrong about 50% of the time. I have to listen through. You know, they teach us in the rooms that principles before personalities. Sometimes when someone's getting under my skin, I gotta look and say, what's wrong with me? Why is that bugging me so much? What is it? What is it that's pushing a button inside of me? If I don't do that, this is what happens. Can you believe that person? Oh, by the way, I'm by myself now, in my house. Only talking to myself, right? Right? Now I'm having a conversation, and I'm winning. I'm winning the fight. Yeah, you're all laughing because you get it. That means now I'm back to step 2. So here's the math problem. All of a sudden something irritates me. I ding a character defect. I hold on to it because we alcoholics love to polish our character defects. Love them. Make them really big, right? Don't tell anybody, right? Just hold on to them. Insanity returns. So now I'm back at step 2, and I gotta work my way back out of that one. Stop, drop, and pray like it's fire drill. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Get through that again. Pick it up, talk about it, share, spit it out to somebody else. I love it. I love that that's the thing, right? I was 20 years sober. I'm having dinner with my sponsor, She loves when I have these, I call them my epiphanies of the obvious. And I just go, oh, you're not going to believe this. She goes, what? And I said, I'm 20 years sober. I'm still doing the same thing I learned in my first year. I'm still making 2 phone calls a day. I'm still going to meetings every week. I'm still doing this. And it's great. I learned it all in my first year. I'm just honing that skill more. I'm practicing. She goes, right? Yeah, because that's what we do, right? Everything I'm doing, the thing that got me here, that gave me 30 years, was doing the same thing that I learned in that first year. And let me tell you something. My first year is the best year I never want to do again. I don't want to do it again. I don't have it in me to do it again. I know I don't. I will not come back. I know it. I'm not going to go out and have a drink and call me and go, oh my God, I drank last night, you know. No, I'm going to disappear. I'm going down. Because coming back in here, I don't see it, and I want that. I want to hold on to that. I have seen people with more time than me go out, and they say, I went out on anger. I went out on this, I went out on that. They know enough to know what it was, right? So I'm going to hold on to my chair because that's the most important thing I can do, and give it away. Because when I give it away, I'm just sharpening my stick. See, this program's incredibly selfish. It was perfectly designed for a person like me because I give it away and I get back tenfold. I do. I get it back tenfold. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Now, in those first 5 years, I had trap doors, right? What was going to be that thing that I would drink over? Because those are those crazy thoughts, right? What is it? What is it going to be, right? And I'm sitting in those rooms, and I'm listening, and I'm talking, I'm going, well, in 5 years, you know, everything will be great, and I'll probably be drinking again, no prob, you know, it'll be fine, because you guys are teaching me how not to drink, and that's fine. I'm 3.5 years sober, and I'm pretty solid in my sobriety. And unexpectedly, my younger sister dies. And my younger sister and I, my family, you know, I talked about alcoholism and mental health. Well, guess what? You know, I was the one that they said there, she was making a big deal out of it. It was my older sister that was the one that didn't have this. She was the one that was bipolar, and she said to me one day, she goes, you know how you and Steve and Nan always sit around and mock me out and talk about me and say, look how crazy she is. She's always walking around the house, talking to herself and laughing. I went, She goes, you ever wonder what I was saying to myself? She was very wise. My big sister was very wise. I said, no, what were you saying? She said, what I was saying was, look at the 3 of them. They're smoking, snorting, and drinking, and they call me nuts. Right? That is. You know, my arrogance wants me to think that, oh, I'm just an alcoholic. No, I have a mental illness. It's called alcoholism. It's in the book, and, you know, and oh, by the way, it wants me to isolate, which really means it wants me to look terminally unique and not relate to you. We've got to help the newcomer relate, right? That's why we have greeters at the door. That's why we let people, I walked in the door, I gotta tell you, I walked in, there's a priest staying there, my butt gets tight, I'm like, what the hell? Whoa, is there a wedding? What's going on? And then there's Minnie Mouse, and you know. And then I was like, alcoholics, of course. That's the way we roll. So I'm coming to the end. I've got 5 minutes left. Do I take it all the way? Do I take it all the way? Okay, I'll give you 3 more of me. Because I told you I could talk for an hour, didn't I? If you're in those first 5 years, when my little sister died, I was shattered. And I mean shattered. And 6 months before she died, I was home with her, because they live in Syracuse. And we got talking about this guy, Dick Leo. I love telling this story. And he was one of my dad's drinking buddies. And I was like, boy, I wonder if Dick Leo's even alive, you know? I'm newly sober, I'm talking about people, right? Yeah, gossip. And I said, boy, I wonder if he's even alive. He was bad. Dad was bad, but he was really bad. I said, well, I got to go, because I always fortified myself with knowing where meetings were, knowing where I could go and all that. So I run into this clubhouse in Syracuse. Who's sitting there but Dick Leo? And he looks great. He's 8 years sober. I walk up to him at the end, and we talk. He tells me my dad had tried AA. but didn't think he was one of us. And that's when I knew my father left me the greatest gift ever. Because my father used to sit there drunk and say, "Do as I say, not as I do." Oh, I hated it. I hated it. But he meant it. And now I know he rests in peace because I'm sober today. Well, that was Christmas, April 1st. The following April 1st, my sister dies, and I have to go home to Syracuse. I go into my sister, and I'm shattered. I'm shattered. Reedy comes with me. She's holding me up so I can hold everybody else up, because I'm the person that has to hold everybody else up in the family. And I walk into my baby sister's funeral, and there's a room full of AA people. I'm 4 hours away from home, and the room's filled with AA people. Because the word gets out, right? And then we're standing in line, and I'm standing next to my brother, and he's all hungover and drunk, and he's like, and he looks, and Dick Leo comes by, and he hands me a piece of paper, right? Puts his arms around me, gives me a big hug, and he goes, "You doing okay, kiddo?" And I'm like, hanging. And he goes, "Here's everybody's number. You need anybody, you call, and we're here for you." And he hugged me. Hand to God, my brother looks up. He looks at me, he goes, "Was that Dick Leo?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's AA in action. That is AA in action." I went through the worst thing in my life. And guess what happened? AA showed up and it carried me, and I didn't want you people around again. I wanted to shut you down. I wanted to shut you out. I couldn't talk because anytime I tried, I felt like I was going to break, and I was mad at God. I mean, I was really mad at God. 9 months of mad at God. Like, you, and I won't say anything because I'm in a church. I had drunk dreams for 6 months, every day. I was bored. I woke up every day, bored with drunk dreams. Yeah, drank again last night, blah, blah, blah. Drunk dreams are gifts, by the way. Somewhere around 9 months, I looked up again and I went, "And you?" And I went, oh, you must exist. I cannot be this pissed off at something that doesn't exist. That was my Irish way of finding my higher power. And you know what? All I know now is my higher power did not bring me this far to drop me on my butt. I ask when I'm in a scary situation. Tonight, I know you find that hard to believe, to just hold my hand while I'm up here. Let me know you're by my side. Just walk with me at anything I do. And the thing I've learned in AA, I am never alone anymore. And that scared little kid today can stand up and say, "Please keep coming back." The miracle has already happened if you're sitting in this chair. Just wait for more and more of them, because more will be revealed. So I want to thank you again. Thank you all. Happy Halloween. And I hope you got something out of that message. Thanks.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian, and I'm an alcoholic. First and foremost, I want to thank Pam for coming out here tonight, sharing her experience, strength, and hope with us. A couple quick announcements, and we'll wrap it up here. As was mentioned, the food and the fellowship for this group, it starts at 8 o'clock every week. It's usually a handful of us hanging out even before that, so feel free to show up early, enjoy the fellowship, enjoy the refreshments and the coffee that we put out. If you want to get involved with this group, you want to help set up, greet people, we're always looking for people to get involved with service. As Ron mentioned before the meeting, we have a lot of commitments, hospitals, institutions, so if you'd be interested in helping to carry a message to the sick and suffering, to the front lines, see me, see a group member after the meeting. There's always a meeting after the meeting. If you're out there, we can always use help putting away the chairs. But more importantly, if you're out there and if you're new, you're struggling, hang out with us, grab some numbers. We'd love to recommend some meetings. I'd love to help you get into the solution a little bit. It's customary for us to thank our speakers. They come on their own time and expense, so we usually form a line in the front here, and we thank our speakers personally. Thanks to everybody for helping out with the meeting tonight. Thanks to our greeters, our readers. Thanks to Miss Kay for taking care of the kitchen. And most importantly, let's thank our speaker, Pam, one more time. And if you do care to join us, we have a nice way of closing. Oh, we circle up now, I guess. Yeah, we're doing that. We're circling up now. We're going back to our roots. This used to be illegal. I gotta lead us off. All right, and we will close down the meeting with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic inside and outside of these rooms, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father. Stop.